Elio guys, and welcome back. In today's video though, I want to discuss with you guys, with the addition of Zeus, we have access to a new and refreshing form of content which the Lupin dungeon failed to service, but that's with the Apophis dungeon, or Apophis Dimension Defense, or I do believe it's also pronounced Apophis, so I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced, but hopefully you guys can kind of understand who I'm talking about. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So what exactly am I talking about here? So with his new introduction, our minds have been going wild, even though he's been live in the game for all of like 2 seconds at the time of this video's recording. But for the Dimension Defense, we do have a new kind of mechanic similar here to Titans. I've already used my swords here, so don't really judge me on that. But this video is more so of like a discussion, or kind of like a what have you found type thing since she's been introduced into the game. So currently I've only fought in the wood one and the light one, but from what I gathered, not only with my own experience, but with talking with other people in Discord, which is a great way to kind of learn the game better. So if you haven't joined the Discord yet, the description is below. But I just want to go over a couple of tips that I've learned so far as we're trying to plan out how this thing works exactly, because it's very exciting time, especially for newer players and the old veterans that have been sitting with their 55 million Astromine at level 60 for years that just destroy Titans, and they're like, yeah, there's nothing else to do in this game anymore. So let's go ahead and start here. So I'm just on the screen hanging out, don't pay any attention to this, it's more so of me just talking here. But one of the things I would have to say is this worth doing? This is something that you might question yourself, especially as a newer player or even as an old player, because getting in here and finding out that certain mons no longer work, even though you have invested basically years into them, is incredibly sad. But in my opinion, I think it's worth doing because we do get access to more Nat 5s, or should I say a Nat 5 that is exclusive to this dungeon in particular. So if you plan on doing this dungeon, it's like a win-win situation. Now I'm not sure if Zeus can be rebirthed after that we've gotten soul stones for him. I'm not even sure if Poseidon and them can be rebirthed. I've never checked. But if that's the case, this could in theory be another way to kind of help you in a Nat 5 rebirth. If that's not the case though, there's people out there like True Hero Luca who may dabble into this and do this, get shards, some of these Nat 5s, and just release them for essence. So it's still a win-win scenario. It's just up to you how much you want to invest in doing this. The second thing I wanted to bring up as well is that due to Apophis's HP, I don't know it for sure, but I guess the rumor around the mill is that he's sitting around at maybe 100,000 HP, which isn't that much at all, especially for a Courageous Striker. Is Elio, should I be bringing Courageous Strikers into the Apophis battles? In this scenario, I would say at super duper low level, it doesn't really matter what you bring because he's going to die anyways. But as he continues to go up in his level, he's going to continue to go up in power and defense. And since his HP is stagnant from my understanding, there's going to be no increase at all into your damage from Courageous Strikers. So this isn't a Courageous Striker type content. We have Titans for the Courageous Strikers, which I know we have tons of them. There's all these teams and all these strategies that go on with these monsters, and we can't use them here. Congratulations, we can literally use them in the other parts of the game here. But the biggest focus now is going to be lethal strikers. That seems to be the play of the game going forward here. I will say that you don't need lethal strikers at the beginning of Apophis or Apophis. As he's getting higher and higher in levels though, do keep in mind that he's going to hit harder, it's going to be harder to survive, and if you want to damage him, that's when lethal strikers are going to come in here. So I would say for now, at least the meta in terms of what you should be using, especially towards the higher levels for this guy, is without a doubt lethal striker. So if you're missing out on lethal strikers, it's not a big deal. There's some mons that are accessible, there's some mons that you're just going to have to start pulling for and praying to the gods that you get. But once again, this is a great avenue because it kind of opens up more access to mons that we didn't really find useful, or we found super duper niche. So I'm super duper excited about that. Another question you might have too is, should I build multiple teams for this? So with Mr. A, as I'm calling him for right now, the issue with that though is it really depends on how hard you want to go on in terms of this content, because we do get 3 tries per day, and I'm not saying don't use all of those 3 tries, but depending on how big your mon box is, because I'm on a casualty account for whatever reason, just because depending on how big your mon box is, I do believe this can be expanded out to 500. I'm not trying to go to 500, because if I go to 500, I'll hoard all 500 here. And we do have basic storage too in our ship, which also goes, I believe, to 300. But the biggest issue though is how are you going to build teams that kind of perform in all 3 areas of Mr. A, because as he gets stronger, the mons that you're using in the beginning aren't going to be that good. You're going to need lethal strikers, you're going to need certain buff breakers, which I'll talk about a little bit later in this video, and it's going to be very, very bad. So my recommendation, at least for right now, unless you're like, dude, I don't care about Titans, this is it for me, I would suggest kind of building 1 team. If you can squeeze out 2 teams, even if the second team is super duper subpar, I think that's the best way to go with Mr. A for now, just because of the sheer amount of mons that you need that are super duper niche and situational. You might not have a box full of all of these mons, but yeah, I would just try and at least build 1 team for all the elements that you can do. And if there's a team that you can't do, like I want to say Wood Mr. A is going to be a very, very big problem if you don't have buff breakers, which congratulations, most of us didn't really care about because we didn't really have content to do that with. But yeah. And that does provide a positive segue over here though into the whole debuffer talk as well, because I know with Glenda, who came out like a month ago, especially in my review, I was like, okay, Fire Glenda is interesting. I saw people in Discord, they're like, Elio, Fire Glenda, trash. There's nothing special about her. Who would use her for any content? All of a sudden, Mr. A drops with his update and everyone's just like, you know what? Fire Glenda, she's not terrible. She could work. Is she optimal? No, but you know what? She could work. Same thing with freaking Light Glenda. They're like, Light Glenda, dude, who in the H word would use freaking Light Glenda? She has freaking full buff breaker and resistance down. Why would you use that Astramon? And all of a sudden it's like, Light Glenda, dude? Light Glenda's looking like a snack, man. Like, so don't be sleeping on the mons that have full buff breaker. That is totally needed, and if you don't have him, at least, or if you don't have her or these Astramons for Wood Mr. A, you're gonna have to substitute with other mons like the Fire Gingerbread Cookie. There's also Fire Kiki, and there's a couple of other mons that I can't think of like right off the top of my head, just because I'm doing this off the fly here. But the mons that we thought were super duper useless, congratulations, they're not anymore. So if you don't have those, I would suggest kind of just going through all of the fights with him and kind of gathering up your soul stones and pulling definitely a Fire Zeus as soon as you can, because that's going to be a big game changer. But once again, this kind of touches on the whole debuffers. Do I need debuffers for Mr. A? Yes. You're going to need full buff breaker. You're going to need shield breaker. If you don't have full buff breaker, you're going to need buff breaker in itself, because I think Fire Kiki has buff breaker by herself, and there's other Astramon shield breakers, so you have to use them in combination with each other. And also mons at this point is pure speculation, but purification could also be a big deal, because I want to say for the dark version of him, he has curse and fulminating curse, so you would hopefully kind of want those debuffs to drop off of you, just because it's going to be a very, very bad time. And same thing with the variant version of his light one, who has stun as his normal skill. You want to make sure that you either have mons that can heal up and kind of get rid of that, or you have mons that can kind of protect against that attack, aka shielders in certain situations. So healers are definitely going to be very, very important here, as well as the debuffers that I can even say for myself that I've been sleeping on. And to end things here, you may be wondering, okay, you recommended using lethal strikers, especially later on during the fights, which is perfectly fine as his level goes up. Obviously, he gets harder, which is intended. But how else am I supposed to damage him? So far with my testing, maybe others can vouch for me as well, I've found that regular Astramon that are obviously outdated in other content, because we now have Nat 5 Super Evolutions and all kinds of stuff like that, or should I correct it, Nat 5 Ultimate Evolutions and all kinds of stuff like that. Mons like Fire Leo are coming back, dude. Like, I'm not going to say that they're going to be top tier near the end of his phases, but at least for the beginning, Very, very easy and accessible in terms of damage. I think I tried on this account with my Dark Wild Fang against the light version of Mr. A, and she came out with like 800k damage. And I think I tried Dark Indra on the wood one the other day, which was like yesterday, I do believe, and he only did like 107k. So definitely don't sleep on mons that have Hunter on them or Predator. I do believe that's going to be the play of the game here. I do think Wild Fang especially is going to be useful with her self-sustainability, and you can get some damage out of her. But outside of that, though, I think mons like Fire Succubus still suck. There's nothing different about them at all. Sappers do apply like a 2k tick on him in terms of damage, but 2k is nothing. So if you can come up with a super duper big brain idea for Sap, that's up to you. But my suggestion is just to use the nuker mons that we used to use back in the day before puncture was a thing. Which, speaking of puncture, obviously because his defense is what it is, I do want to say that it is usable in the very, very beginning stages of him, but obviously it just drops off after that. So you're going to run into the same scenario that you run into with a Courageous Striker with puncture, of where it's just useless to have. So that pretty much sums up things. So if you want to take anything away from this video, try and hit them all if you can. Build one team for each of them if you can. Make sure you keep your lethal strikers. Don't be sleeping on mons with buff breaker anymore, especially for the wood version of him. Obviously, we're going to need other debuffs in the future. I'm predicting possibly blind and stuff of that nature. Defense down, useless. Weaken, you want to have weaken. You want to have healers. And save your lethal strikers for later on in the fights if you can. If you only have one team and that's as good as you can get it, go ahead and get it. But try and save that for fights later on if you can, or once his level gets higher, just because they're going to benefit more from doing more damage. And then for the lower, mid-level-ish type situation, you just want to bring in the old-fashioned nukers. Fire Leo, there's Fire Wild Fang, there's Water Loki, which I don't really talk about water nukers, but there's also Water on Maoji. We have Wood nukers as well, which is totally leaving my mind right now. I'm thinking of Wood Incubus, even though, I mean, he's technically a nuker, but he's like a slow AF wave clearer. I do think, did one of the Griffins have like Hunter? I don't know. Basically, nukers is the way to go. Obviously, try and match it with what element that you can, just so you get the elemental advantage in terms of damage. And yeah, that's pretty much all that I have for now. If you guys have discovered anything that you want to share, feel free to leave in the comments below about what you guys can kind of contribute, because I may do an updated video of this before like actual guides drop, as we all kind of scurry together and kind of learn and see what's going on here. But yeah, it's definitely a good time because our minds are going and we're like, wow dude, we got to figure out what to do. How can I cheese this thing as fast as possible? But that's pretty much it, you guys. See ya.